artificial intelligence and how it's actually being incorporated and applied in development and humanitarian aid work. We came across a couple of companies and organizations that are actually using AI and incorporating in their work. For example, UN World Food Program, IBM, UNICEF, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And an interesting research that we found out was that back in 2014, USDOT with DPI had a hackathon that basically encouraged the prototype and coming up with an app that would help individuals in Africa that are affected with Ebola to help request for help. Sorry, to request help. To request immediate help, basically through the app. Like they would click on the button and it would be connected to the hospital that is in their area that would help give them vehicles to help transport them without having to spread disease outside.
And we built out our user flow, quite simply our onboarding, help, and our feedback to improve the app over time. And our site map looks really complicated, but it's essentially just onboarding. We broke it down into the chatbot, the menu, the resources from the menu. If you're not using the chatbot, but also our additional feature is the immediate help. And then we conducted wireframes, built them out, and they ended up looking like the final UI. And we'll jump into our prototype right now, or the storyboard, sorry, right now.
All right, to brainstorm the conversation that would happen, that would take place between the user and a chatbot, we came up with two stories. First being a situation of where the individual needs to report sexual harassment. So in this diagram, you'll notice that the lady is going into the break room trying to get water, and her boss comes and starts to give her compliments that are unnecessary and unwanted. It happens over time, plenty of times, to the point where she starts to feel harassed. And she starts to feel degraded because it's kind of a little extra and too insulting. So then one time she's talking to her colleague and she's like, I don't know how to report him. I'm scared that if I do report the situation, I'm going to be retaliated for. So her colleague suggested that maybe she could get onto the app, Uni, and try to figure out how she can report without having to fear retaliation. So when we work when we show you the live combination of how the chatbot works, we'll be addressing this scenario. The second scenario that we have was of how an individual who's on sick leave and needs to exhaust his sick leave because he has a rare disease. And the thing is that when he wants to tell his boss about how he needs to extend his sick leave, he's afraid that his boss will retaliate in a sense that would make him lose his job. So the individual needs to find out more about what the lines of HR policy are and what he has in production for himself. So he turns to the app to learn more about how we gain more information about the UN policies.
So these are our stories that we made for ourselves to kind of get an understanding of who would be using this app. And then we'll be showing how these people would come about using the chatbot section and the regular app through our prototypes.
All right. So the chatbot would first greet the individual by saying, "Greetings, I'm Rini, Lee runs me from Spot. How can I help you today?" So she would respond by saying, I would like to report misconduct. It would respond back by saying, "Of course, may I ask what type of misconduct you are looking for to report?" She would respond by saying sexual harassment. So it goes back by saying, "That's unsettling. I'm sorry you have to experience such a terrible situation. I will help." her being hopeful that he will help, but also helpless, will respond by saying, I hope so. So it first introduces the fact that she has to contact the senior coordinator for preventing sexual exploitation and workplace abuse, Ms. Isabella. It tells her that the main point of what's this called contact in this situation is the individual gives her the email, the phone number. So then she's like, awesome. She's like, thank you. So it goes back by saying, please also remember that you are mandated to submit a formal report to the Office of Internal Audit and report the misconduct that is happening. So she's confused and she's like, what is formal reporting? It responds back by saying, it explains what formal reporting is and also gives her the option of choosing to report informally because he's now starting to inform her that she has 2 types of reporting misconduct. So she'll go back by saying, I'm confused, I can report misconduct in 2 different ways. I'm confused. Okay, so now for example, ideally the bot is starting to figure out what the individual is trying to say. So in this situation, she typed something incorrectly that the bot did not understand. So when it does not understand, it directs her to the HR handbook. And if she clicks on the HR handbook, it leads her to all the topics addressed by the UN HR portal. And she would search according to what she's looking for and will give her the. So that's an example of how the chatbot works.
Into our prototype. Here's this splash page, and then you choose your language. And then let's say you haven't used the mobile app before, choose get started. You're greeted. And then you're introduced to who Uni is. We chose Uni because it's essentially like short for universal, and it provides on-demand work-related resources. We wanted to emphasize anonymity, so we had an explanation of that. Reporting misconduct, but he really facilitates misconduct at this point. Provides advice, and our extra feature, which is urgent help. After the onboarding, you landed on the chatbot. We wanted to emphasize more of a conversational UI experience. But if you wanted to access the app through the app itself, you have the option to go to resources, look up someone maybe in a certain office, get their contact information. And then through this button, you can call directly. Or if you're just interested in other resources in HR or FAQs, you can do that. Key documents and learning. But let's say that you get into a crisis at work, and something happens to you. We have the button for, are you in immediate danger? Yes or no? What would you guys like to see? Yes or no? You're in immediate danger. All right, let's just say yes. And so someone will be sent this, ideally would go to someone in like a police department kind of office. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool. So yeah, if you did yes, you go to the police department, something like that.
What's that?
You said if you do yes, then it will be like 911 or police department or something like that.
On your way to your location, and in the onboarding, I meant to say that there is a location tracker, so that it's automatic. It's automated that way, so that they know exactly where to go. And the last thing is, once they have an issue that's not immediate, you can go through that whole chatbot experience, and then at the very end, you ask feedback, and that'll help us develop the app better. That's it.
Wonderful. Understand. bad time to go on mute. Yeah, applause. That was great.
Nice job. Yeah.
Questions? Do you guys have any?
Yes, I do. So in terms of like coming up with uni and a few of these other sort of pieces, what were your options? Like as you were discarding other options and landing on the ones you chose, can you give us a sense of what the alternatives were and how you determined the path forward here?
So we actually started with the avatar first because this helped us get a sense of the feel of the app, developing the app. And we wanted it to be something friendly and personable. And then shortening the word is, we had opinions from many people that thought that uni was something cute and something friendly and helpful. That's why I went for it. And obviously uni is short for universal. We want a universal help. All people are here and all kinds of help will be addressed.
Hi, I'm Tamar. Thank you so much for doing this. This is really interesting. Sorry, can you see me? One of my questions is about actually the idea of what kind of topics for the chat box the apps that you researched were most appropriate. So I'm just thinking if there was a person who had, like in your storyboard, been afraid or had actually experienced sexual harassment, whether that isn't if the chat box has been shown to be an appropriate avenue for getting information or not. Like I'm just sort of wondering sort of if you know or can speak to which entry points are more appropriate for different types of misconduct.
Definitely. So the chatbot ideally was created with the idea of I don't want to be put on the spot. I don't want to go up and be like, hey, so-and-so is harassing me or so-and-so is abusing me. So if you notice that the chatbot doesn't ask who she is, what's happening. It's just a matter of facilitating a conversation for her to reach the correct department or him to reach the correct department to get that assistance that she needs. But going back to address your request and your situation, in regards to where it's an immediate abuse or exploitation that's happening on spot, that's why we have the immediate response. In a sense that you're in a situation where you can't cry for help, you can't speak up, you would have a couple seconds to yourself. If you can get on the phone and just click on that immediate response and click yes, then the system would have somehow be created in a sense that it informs that some misconduct is happening, some abuse is happening, someone needs immediate and urgent assistance in the sense that security or policemen or what is needed in that case will come and help to take that person out of that dangerous situation safety. So ideally the person wouldn't go into the chatbot and say, hey, I'm being abused, but more so click on the button to get help. Or if she does want to mention, I need someone to help me out with the situation, then the chatbot will be her to the person that will help her physically.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna read. Okay.
Three questions. One, first of all, nice job. It was really amazing and impressive, especially the interactive part was really fascinating. I have one question about the personally identifiable information. I understand that this is going to be an anonymous contact between the one who's sitting in the one end on the app and a visitor or an employee who is reporting an issue. As much as you might not consciously share information, as you know, there have been huge scandals. For example, Uber once tried to show off and show that, like, see, I'm showing all these like routes and stuff, and there were hackers who hacked into and said who works where, who lives where, and then which man has 2 wives and an affair, and you know, like the whole huge scandal that I don't know if you are following those cases, but there are a lot of cases in Silicon Valley right now with those apps. And as much as I might not want to share personally identifiable on its space, but there might be information that along Netflix had the same issue, that, for example, a senator was watching certain movies and people could, you know, figure who was watching what. First of all, have you thought about this? Have you considered anything? This is A. Should I ask 3 questions or should I just go one?
I can
Okay. Oh, okay. So this is the main question then.
just to answer that question, I actually meant to mention our phase 2. So this is just our MVP, and our second phase would incorporate more features like encryption and also incorporating a booking system for HR. This is something not answering directly your question anonymity, but there are ways that benefit for booking appointments. We did user research on that from the HR department for booking appointments that to help them do that.
Okay, great, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. This is a great start for us.
Yes.
Hi everyone. We're behind Selfie, which is a chatbot app that was built for the OU and to help users navigate through their core workplace issues. So
Can we do anything about the audio? I'm sorry, Javi, Zach. If there's anything about the audio, because it's just really hard to hear folks.
Yeah, my name is Eric Woods. I was the chat fuel and Miro guy throughout this process.
And my name is Maria. I was the expert. So during this process, we faced 4 main problems, and the first of which was that we had an overwhelming amount of information to start off with. There were so many contacts, offices, and policies that we had to work our way through, and we had to make sure that our users could easily navigate through all of this information without getting overwhelmed and lost. We also had to make sure that confidentiality remains key. We wanted users to feel like the app was secure and trustworthy, but the app could also operate without requiring people's personal information. Thirdly, the app had to be accessible, especially for people with vision and hearing impairments. And finally, the users that would be using the app would be coming from all over the globe, so we had to make sure that it was easily understandable, no matter where you were or where you came from. So we came up with a solution that would be exact, private, accessible, and global, and we called our solution Sully. So
That's a good laugh. Sorry, it's wonderful.
Okay, so this is Sully's first onboarding page. This is what every new user is greeted by. And it's just a short little blurb about Sully and Sully's privacy. So, of course, if the user wants to skip and not give any information at all, they're more than welcome to. And the first question is simply like, what language do you speak? Satisfy the global component. We also ask about which of the offices they're from, along with their location. This will help us find their contact information. And then after these 3 short questions, it brings us to the chatbot page, which is also the main page. And we decided to make the chatbot the main page that users land on, simply because it was something that a lot of other chatbots that we researched had done so. And since the chatbot is the main function of this app, we wanted to make sure that it was just front and center, and you can reach it very quickly. And as you can see, this is Sally talking, a little example. And we also have a little microphone here that indicates that users can also transcribe their audio in case they don't want to type and want to speak instead. And if we go ahead into the hamburger menu, we have the chatbot, of course. And we click into resources. Under resources, we have the 5 main offices that are listed. And if a user decides to click into ethics, for example, they will get the contact information for the ethics office, along with the ability to very quickly contact them. There's also an about section with their website, additional resources, and an opportunity for you guys to add in training videos, and we've also included a little transcript option for accessibility purposes. And if you look from office to office, they all follow a very standardized layout. It's just the content and a few other things that might vary. So this one would be for. And then if we go into settings, this is where the user can adjust a lot of their settings. So for instance, they can change their language. They can update their office and location in case they move. And they can also adjust their accessibility. So we've decided to include large text, dark mode, zoom, assistive touch, and then for here, we've also included the following 3 pages because they were standard in other chatbot apps. So this is just a privacy policy. And then we have feedback as well for people to leave their opinions and rate Sully overall. And we have a help page, which also includes a link directly to our live chat in case people don't want to talk to Sully and they just want immediate responses. So that's about it for our app prototype. Now I'm going to turn it over to Eric.
Okay, so for our user flow, we based this on the 3 main paths that we found from the existing research and brochures that we've given. And those 3 paths that we went with for Sully was wanting to report misconduct in the form of either fraud, corruption, or harassment, getting general advice and guidance in regards to careers, and making appeals for different processes throughout appointment evaluations and so on. So jumping into chatbot here. All right, so this is basically what the chatbot would look like immediately following the introduction by Sully, and then asking essentially what they're wanting, what the user is wanting to go towards. They do have the option to type, but for the purposes of this one, I'm just going to click through for this one here. So our user is going to be reporting sexual harassment specifically. So we're going to be reporting misconduct. We're just going to prompt Sully to, of course, say that they're sorry to hear about that, and what exactly they're wanting to report, whether that's workplace harassment or fraud. And workplace harassment. And for this one, they get the option of reporting anonymously, scheduling a meeting, or immediately, or depending upon what the user thinks is the appropriate course of action. So for this one, they're going to report anonymously, which is then going to prompt Sully to ask them to describe the incident in detail here in the type box, and just clarifying there at the bottom that their name will not be included in this report, considering the user wants to report anonymously. So for the purposes of this, obviously this would be a little more filled out based off the user, but if it was reading like this, being harassed on October 25th, Sully will go ahead and file that report and then direct them over to the ethics office so that they would be able to get additional information based off their claim. Going back home for advice and guidance, if we have another individual who, for example, wants to transfer offices for whatever reason, they can simply type in transfer, which is then going to prompt Sully to find information on that, while also prompting to ask the question of are you wanting to transfer to some type of legal or harassment issue. If the user were to hit yes, then they would be transferred back to the path that we just talked about for the harassment claim. But for purposes of this, I'm going to say no, which is then going to direct them over to the HR website link so that they can do the transfer properly according to the standards that are set. And lastly, if our individual wants to make an appeal, they can simply do that. Once you prompt to performance evaluation or management evaluation based off what they're doing. And we're going to say that our individual is unhappy with one of their performance evaluations. So they are then directed over to the appropriate spot in the DP office to start filing that appeal there. So from there, for our roadmap, phase 1 is prototyping, which we're doing now, of course, creating that AI-backed chatbot functionality for lodging those complaints and those claims, and then our onboarding flow through Acture. The prioritization, our recommendation is prioritizing the ability to make those fraud, corruption, and harassment claims there. The ability to access all of this information offline, so having all of this data built into the app itself, and then continuing to use sure it's actually a viable product, which of course we showed the MVP today. And then for the future, we also recommend additional features, as Mia mentioned, the live chat representative, in case they don't want to go through the chatbot itself to get information. That SOS and immediate help option, and develop a method for tracking the appeals and status points, whether that's through some type of moniker or code number or something along those lines. They can simply type into the chatbot to get an update on that. And from there, pending any questions, thank you for your time.
Any questions? So it seems like you all made your sort of chatbots architecture in two different with two different systems, I guess. One was Chat Fuel, and the other one I didn't catch. Axior, yeah. So can you share a little bit about the differences there between Axior and Chat Fuel?
Yeah, so Axior was the program that I worked with, and it was more for designing the actual app itself. But just due to the constraints of the project, we weren't able to build a chatbot within it. We were actually recommended to use ChatFuel instead for the chatbot itself. Okay,
got it. And those two talk to each other pretty well?
No, from what I understand, they don't really talk to each other at all. ChatFuel is specifically for the chatbot functionality itself, while Axior is the basic layout of the application itself.
Okay, got it.
The chatbot would be moved into the application, but for the purposes of this project and given the constraints, we had to do it this way. So.
Yeah, and you were talking about usability testing and maybe doing it offline. So that's a function that's possible here with the current structure.
That's what we're recommending, is being able to operate Sully offline. So for example, if they're in a place that doesn't have any cell phone service, for example, they're still able to get on there, type in what they need to type in, or go where they need to in order to get that contact info or find a way forward to take care of whatever issue they may be presented with.
We also talked about that a little bit more depth in our final report, where we have a section outlining what should be offline ideally, and then what features would be online.
Okay. Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah. Sorry. Hi, I have a quick question. Since it seemed like from the chat box demonstration that there was some sort of tracking of formal processing, what would the back end information be put in? For example, like an executive director of an organization or a unit head, are you envisioning that they would have access on the back end to sort of make it so that people could track the progress of their management evaluation request or their performance rebuttal request? I wasn't totally clear on the tracking part of it.
Yeah, so the tracking part was, we put it down as phase 3 task, so kind of for after the app is developed, the usability tests have happened to see if that is a viable option. So we would have to test whether or not, whenever you put in a management evaluation, for example, and you're given some type of code or case number, that you can then go back, type into the bot itself, and then it comes up with some type of stats. Not getting in depth, but just kind of telling you where it's at in the process. That's kind of what we're envisioning for the time being, but we don't have the fidelity there yet to go super in depth on that particular issue.
Okay, thank you.
Sitting on the system.
No, of course, but I just think
All right, are we ready in the back of the room? All right, fantastic. Hi guys, we are presenting to you about RES, or RES, short for resolution, which is what we need to do. So I am Seth Rader. I am joined by Michelle Jang. For our project, we actually did it similar to Eric and Maria, where I did most of the chat fuel construction, and Michelle did a lot of the Axior construction. So kicking us off, Michelle is going to take us through our design or research process. Excuse me.
So we did our research first and foremost by reviewing the research was. And then from there, we created an affinity map to just kind of identify some of the key terms that were in both sides. And also find out which offices to guide you.
And then also, as we were preparing to construct this chatbot, we did a comparative analysis where we looked at 5 different popular chatbots and what they did. So we found a lot of diversity. Some of them, such as the Verizon Assistant, were purely informational. They had no personality. They would direct you to information you needed, such as your cell phone plans, for example. But it would not even really say, hello, how are you today? It just gave you the information. Others, such as Pandora, were very conversational. You can talk to them about almost anything. You can tell them your birthday and get fun facts about your birthday. And others, like Bank of America's app, had a very inviting presence with a party hat welcoming, and it just felt very intuitive. Another one that was very informative as we were constructing our chatbot was the, which one was it? Uxdi bot. So Uxdi had a lot of buttons for you to tap, and that eliminated the need for typing as much, and that also helped users navigate the bot because it made it more of like a choose your own adventure kind of story. And while you could type at any time, being able to just make a quick choice sped up the process.
And so with all this information, we created some paper prototypes. This is just one version of it, but as you can see on top, there's an onboarding process, which we found was common in almost all the chatbots we have seen. And originally we had 4 different icons, one specifically for chat, but then after asking some people about these features, we decided to scrap that. And then from there, we created our actual prototype. So once I load this again, you can see it starts the onboarding process, and we decided to add this solely because it does give the user some information of what to expect during the process. And then here we asked to, for the office and the region, solely because we just want to make sure that users get the proper contact information and guided to the correct information. And then here you have the option to just kind of click, and it would explain what to expect in each of these features. And then lastly, Raise prompts you to slide to start chatting. So like some of the other groups, our homepage is the chat, where Ray will again remind you of what her function is. But if you don't want to chat with it, you can come to the side menu here and view some other pages such as the policies. Here we have 9 topics, which is based off of the 9 main concerns on the ombudsman page. You can also just search specific words on the search bar. So if you click into it, it'll take you to your list of results. And then when you click on a specific one, it'll create a pop-up box so you're not distracted by all the other search results. And you also have the option to bookmark to read later. Next, we have the contact page where it's just cards for the specific offices, and it'll give you multiple methods of communication. And when you click on this phone number, for example, it'll prompt you to either call or cancel. And this is the idea that we have for each of the features. And then next is the offices. This is just to give the users an idea of what to expect from each office and what kind of function they can provide for you. So likewise, when you click in, it'll create a pop-up box. And then we also included an appointments feature in case the user wants to create an informal appointment. And this will be demonstrated through our chatbot. You can also set an appointment through Threads. We also have a previous conversation page where you can preview some old conversations you had with Threads. Bookmark page, which will just show you the list of everything that you saved. And lastly, we have the settings page where you can change your information if you food or something has happened, and also the ability portion where you can change text size, speech, voiceover. And we also included an offline mode for the staff members who will be off-site and don't have access to internet.
All right, so that is how Raise is going to look and some of his basic functions, but we also did construct a chat fuel option. And this is how it might look for someone who is going to interact with Raise. So currently he has a greeting up on top with the option to add information. So if I click that, I'll get a couple prompts. Here we go. So something that was really important as we did usability tests is we wanted to reinforce that this is a friendly chatbot. This is not just about your information. So having something like, okay, I can help you change your information, and having the little typing bubble, those are elements that help users feel like they're actually in a conversation and not just talking to a machine. So I'll set my location to Washington, DC, and I'll also get a prompt for what office I work for. We'll use General Assembly as an example. So now he has saved my information and I get redirected to a basic general help page. He gives you a couple things that you can do and an option for more. So in the instance, let's say that I have heard about the Office of the Ombudsman, but I don't know what it does. I can say Office of the Ombudsman. I don't think I spelled that right. Oh, there we go. So now I get some information about it. We did break up the information into different text chunks as much as we could in order to help users feel a little less overwhelmed. It's kind of like he's actually talking to you instead of just dumping a whole bunch of information on you. So further from this, I can get contact information or I can see different topics that the Ombudsman addresses. However, let's say that I show up with an issue. Let's say that I am feeling very depressed and anxious lately and I want to talk to somebody. I can just tell the robot that I'm feeling depressed. And he is going to help me out by giving me some information. So he says, I'm sorry to hear you're going through a difficult time. UNDP offers short-term and long-term counseling free of charge, particularly in the event of emergencies. Would you like more information? So if I say yes, then I get redirected to more information on CSIMU. So now I can even just type in make an appointment because I've decided I want to make an appointment with CISMU. And I get redirected to making an appointment. I will say that the office I want to make an appointment with is CSIMU, and then I get prompted for if I want a formal or informal meeting. So in this instance, I might say a formal meeting since I am having some stressed out, and it's not just something that I want information from. So after this, I get prompted for which day. I'll say 5th. Then I'll get prompted for the time, let's say 9:30 a.m. So now I get a summary of what I want, which is an appointment that's formal with CISMU on November 5th at 9:30 a.m. I say yes, and then Raise has saved that information and we'll forward it on. And if there's anything else I can help him with, I'll say no. So now Raise says goodbye, and I will be here next time I meet him. So for some further recommendations we have, one thing we found that was very important is that it's going to be necessary to break up big blocks of text. If users receive a large block of text at one time, it feels overwhelming. So finding ways to include delays even for how long it takes Raise to send you a message. If it's a larger block of text, you can have him set up so that it's typing for 3 to 4 seconds as opposed to just 1 to 1.5 seconds. We also wanted to add more support for keywords in mid-conversation. So if you're in the middle of making an appointment and then suddenly you remember you wanted to read up on policies, you should be able to type in, show me ombudsman policies in the middle of a conversation, have Raise change routes for you. Also, we did receive some feedback in usability testing that users might need some keywords defined for them, something like shuttle diplomacy. We might know what it is, but the users might not. So having Raise be able to have a definition function would be super important.
And lastly, for information architecture, it's just basically grouping the keywords into as few numbers as possible. So that will also help you create fewer user flows, which will help both in the backend and for the users.
That's it. Any questions?
I have a question about just the capability of scheduling an appointment with an office, the way you all have it structured. Do you have a sense of how mechanically that would work? Would there be like an integration with the office's calendar, or is it just kind of a little more manual than that? What were you thinking around that?
We did not plan integration with the calendar. In imagining out the function of the application, it was more email sent to the office that, a client or user needs to make an appointment at this date at this time, and then perhaps would include an add to calendar button inside of it.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's kind of like a tentative booking. So
having the email come from the app would also keep things anonymous if the user wishes to remain anonymous, like they want to schedule an appointment, but they don't want to put their name out into cyberspace, then they don't have to. The other end just gets an email, and the email has the information for an appointment.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for sharing that research on the different kinds of chatbots. That was really helpful to see just how friendly they can be and whatnot. Thanks for that. I love the previous conversation functionality too. That seemed really cool. So great, thanks for that.
Thanks, guys. All right, we'll do one more and we'll take a quick break.
I'm Lauren. I'm Casey. I'm working on the chatbot app in Uxdi. So for a quick overview, we created a high fidelity mobile application for personnel to seek assistance regarding the main 9 issues in the office. And we first started out with creating a chatbot and mobile application prototypes, then went to onboarding and content structure, and then workflow. So to summarize our research findings, we did comparative analysis and then also informal user interviews, and found that dual platforms are important, especially because the UN has staff members worldwide, different phones, different platforms. Also, including learning modules is important because it gets you to come back and learn more about their issues. Having a directory if they don't want to interact with the chatbot is important to find contact information regarding the offices. And then live support for urgent matters, and then localization accessibility for different languages and accessibility for text sizes, especially for visual impairment and hearing. So I'll start the prototype demonstration. So this is our start screen. Our boss name is Toby. And here it shows that the conversations are private. You can remain anonymous by putting in a nickname or signing in as guest. And then here you can select, the user can select issues that they think they have in the office or they might have. I'll just put some as an example. And then this is to show what the live support button does within the app. And then a little welcome screen and tells them more about what the app does, and then they can get started. So this is a home page for Uxdi. That's at the top in the yellow. And then issue identification for if you have an issue and you want to find offices to go to, and more information and resources about the issue. And then the office directory for the office. And then the resolution, different types of resolution process, informal, formal, and then the key timelines for that. And then live support.
So we'll start by showing the chatbot. This is what the screen would look like in this interface. Just demonstrated. Then with issue identification, if I go in and I have an issue with like compensation and benefits, for example, I could click into here or I could search. And then these are the subcategories of that. So say I want to go to compensation. Could learn more about it, see some related videos, and then tip them how to deal with the issue and which office to specific issue. So use this to go back home. The office directory shows 5 different offices, the main offices, and will show more information about the office, and then contact information. So in the information, it could also show fields or policies, and then this is for the processes, informal, formal, and key timelines. And finally, live support. If you want to go to live support, it will show up. Ask if you're sure, and then we'll bring you to a chat to talk to someone. And then our settings, you can change your nickname or your guest name, the language, and then the text size. So for example, this would be the homepage in Mandarin.
For the chatbot demonstration, we made 2 users and 2 use cases to demonstrate our bot. So first we have Jack. Jack is a very busy individual, and he doesn't have that much issue, and he's just looking to get more information on how to achieve better work-life balance. And then also we have Jane. Jane has a little bit more issue than Jack, and she does have a disagreement with her superior, and she knows her issues, and she's currently looking for help. And I will demonstrate how chatbot can handle 2 different kind of situations. This is I'm sorry. So Toby will start with and start with the process. We will start to check with Jack for default temperature, and Jack feels okay. And so we offer different options that is preloaded, cheer to learn something new, or just to end the conversation. And Jack decided to learn something new today. And Toby will proceed to offer different kind of categories for Jack to read up on. And again, Jack is pretty busy, and he didn't have time to browse different issues and different issue cards. So he decided to type in the information, work-life balance. And the chatbot will lead Jack to the safety, health, well-being, and stress and work-life balance issue card. And Jack decided to proceed to read more about work-life balance. And Toby will give Jack a definition about what is work-life balance about, and Toby will go ahead to ask Jack about if he wanted to read more information on work-life balance, and this is just a sample of an article about 14 steps to achieving better work-life balance. Let's go back to Jane's case. So Jane doesn't really feel that well today, so she will go ahead and choose the frowny face. And again, Toby decided to help Jane to further define her issue so that he can direct her to the correct office. So Jane found that the issue 2, evaluative relationships, is best to describe her issue. So she decided to choose the card number 2. And here in the evaluated relationships, and there are preloaded options as well. And then of course she can type in her issues. So she will choose the disagreement. So Toby gives her again the definition of the issue, and then Toby will prompt Jane to resolve her issue with informal resolution process. And Jane can read up more about the process. And here are the process cards, which is informal resolution process, formal resolution process, and then the key timeline if she wanted to read more about the information. And then she chooses the informal resolution process. And after reading up, and Jane decided to contact the office that is responsible for informal resolution. And Toby will offer her the contact information. And that would be all. And then for our next steps, we break it into 4 phases. And we're currently on the blue phase, which is the prototyping phase. And then for the soon, which is our next step, will be build out the MVP version of the app. And then moving on to the alpha phase, there will be encrypted options for security purposes. And then for the future phase, which is the data phase of the app, and there will be fully high fidelity interactive UI and more usability tests planned out. And that would be all.
Hi, I have a quick question. Again, I'm sorry about the way it looks with the camera, so I'm just going to talk. One of the things that I have a question and a comment. So the question is, why do you integrate so many of the categorizations and issue identifications into the chat box in both sort of cases? Like, what was your thinking behind that?
Okay, so we want to give user more options to read up on the different issues and to further identify the issues that they have. So the materials that we have comes with 9 umbrella issue categories, but then to direct them to the respective offices, the chatbot needs to identify further in order to direct them to the correct office. So that is the kind of the purpose of half education and half further identification.
Okay. And my comment is sort of dovetails with that. I actually, from my own experience, think that that part of it is a really useful idea from the office's perspective in its own data management. I think just sort of comments, visitors we get often don't know what, like I don't think that they think about their cases in these sort of groups like that. they just sort of like, this is my problem and I'd like to deal with it this way. But it's really useful to sort of think about how we can manage our cases better and sort of different ways to sort of integrate that. So it was interesting to see. But thank you. That was all I had to say.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Just like in sort of an eyesight, like case management site.
All right. In 2 minutes.
We're going to take a quick break, restrooms and stuff, and then we're going to come back. We actually have 5 teams left to go. So we're going to have to hustle a little bit on the second end. We have all our LMS teams left to go. So I'm going to mute you guys for a minute or so, and then our LMS teams are going to start setting up.
Okay, great.
It is interesting to sort of see what they come up with.
All right, we are coming back, team.
Ready, set, go. Okay. Hi, my name is Samantha Bartley, and this is Diego Ramos. And we we worked on was called Project Rocket Man, a learning management system for our client. And for the project objectives, just as a quick overview for our audience, the learning management system was to allow for lessons and training to be built quickly, organized by topic and based around learning tracks. All content needed to be findable. So if you wanted to find just video 2 out of 10, you should be able to do that. You also need to accommodate different document types, presentations, PDFs, etc. And they need to be associated with topics and also findable through search or browse. Additionally, the client asked for a virtual classroom and a chat/forum feature to allow for collaboration, discourse, and discussion in the event that users wanted to be able to ask each other questions about specific topics. And also to simulate trainings and to go through certain scenarios that may be helpful in training, such as facilitators and on-site management. We did some competitive research. We analyzed 14 LMSs that were popular, and we used Capterra as our main resource. We have an entire report on this and an Excel spreadsheet. They're not going to be presented here, but they are going to be turned in with our project drop. We also did some research on our client. Now, obviously, we're not supposed to talk about our client to the public, and we're not allowed to reference any people with the client or do stakeholder interviews. But one of the things that we did was we went through the annual report for 2018, and we saw some very important trends that gave us context for our use cases. First off, the office saw 50% cut in staffing. At the same time, they saw a 20% increase in cases, and 79% of these cases were handled in field, so not at the NYC office. 26 of these cases were reported from sub-Saharan Africa. A couple particular players in the cases, the UN Development Program reported the highest number, almost double the rest of the cases behind it at 265, and UNICEF came up second at 172. Also, the client spearheaded the implementation of a respectful workplace facilitator program, and that was for on-site facilitators to learn how to manage conflict in their workplaces. And this informed our first use case, which was a trainee of the facilitator program. They're looking for a specific learning path or course related to their training. It's very task-based, so we wanted to make sure that we gave them the ability to find this course very quickly and save it and start on it. Our next case was an employee of the mediator's office who is working on a specific issue that needs more information. They may be familiar with the policy, but they need more specifics, and they need policy documents and may be asking questions of their peers. So this is, again, looking for a very specific topic or document. They may need to be able to ask questions and discuss a discussion forum. This is very task-based. Again, this is a very specific instance. An organization employee, though, with a general interest in managing workplace conflict should also be able to use the LMS because they want to be able to get better at managing their own relations and also develop their own skills. We do have 2 additional ones here that we did not work too much with, unfortunately, due to the scope of the project. But an organization employee with a conflict but still isn't sure if mediation is necessary, wants to learn about what they can do, they want to better their own skills. Again, this is much more about general information, and they're doing a resource search. We also added an admin to our use cases. Unfortunately, because of the scope of the project, we will not be able to demonstrate anything for the admin at this time, but we do know that the admin of the course or the LMS will need to be able to upload, update, organize, and delete content. And talking about our use cases in the prototype will be Diego.
So I'll run through a quick demo of our prototype. So in our research, we found that the users needed to be able to use this quickly, efficiently, and really needed to get from point A to point B in a really efficient way. So that's what was our sort of inspiration throughout. And we conducted various usability tests, about 5 to 7, and we really iterated on our prototype. So this would be the home screen here. So you would be first directed to the learning catalog. So this is intended for anyone that doesn't really know what they're looking for, or just wants to browse what content is available. They can scroll through new courses or most viewed or most popular courses. Then you would have your in progress section. Of course, since this would be the screen for a new user, there isn't any course in the in progress just yet. But you would have your courses that you're currently in progress here. You'd have saved courses or saved content here. And then you'd have a course history, so you could access your completed courses. Then you have an accessibility menu here, so you can adjust any accessibility parameters. And you have a language selector, so you can change to different languages needed. Now on the main dashboard, we have a browse function. So here you can browse by courses, resources, and forums. These are the 3 main categories that we came up with. And so this would make it easy to, if you say had an idea of something you were looking for, you could quickly look through courses, resources, or forums. And then we have a home forum and webinar link here on the top. And we're just going to go into the courses section here. So this is the search section. So any search would end up on this page here. So we have a series of filters all under the 3 main categories, being courses, resources, and forums. And then depending on what filter you have selected, it will show up here above the search results. So this makes it really easy so that I can filter through the main categories and any subcategories pertaining to those main categories. So such as topic, I can quickly pop up values and ethics here, compensation, and then I can also exit out of these really easily. And that will dictate what the results are. So here I'll show you an example of that. So when I select resources, because it's another main topic, it would create another layer to these bubbles basically that basically indicate and give you a visual of what filter you have selected. And as you saw, the results change based on that. And then you can sort through these by most viewed or length or most recent, so you can get a more refined search that way. And of course, if I selected forums, I could also search through forums. As you saw here, the results changed and included now forums, and I could also refine any of these searches if I wanted to. Now to just show you what a course page would look like, if I selected this course, for example, I'd be directed into this course page, and I'd be given a brief overview of what you could expect from this course. So what you'll learn, a summary, what's included. Ideally, you'd have links to these documents here, so you could quickly look at what documents are included in the course and access those documents right away. And then you have the option to enroll and save the course, as well as related content at the bottom. And the nice thing is that you'd be able to quickly go back, and your filter selections would stay the same. So you'd be able to quickly go through different courses or related content. And I'll show you an example of one of our course pages. So I go into here. This is a PDF. So it would show you a preview of the PDF. It would give you the option to download or go to the link to the website if that is something that is necessary for this document. You would be able to see what course, if this is associated with the course, what course it's associated with, and follow a link to that course, as well as enroll directly into that course right away. And then you also have document details. This is something that we got feedback on, and we thought we got a lot of positive responses with this sort of flow. You can also go back just like you could with the courses, and ideally all of your previous filters would be selected, and you could continue your search. And that is the
We also do have the search bar here. So I'll show you an example of a search. So say I'm looking for more information on ethics. If I start typing in ethics, it'll automatically pull up the subcategory or any category that it's related to. And below it, it tells me how many courses, resources, or forums are related to that particular category. And then if I select it, it will automatically select all of the filters relevant to that search. And it's a little buggy here, but it would pull up all of the filters will be selected automatically, and then you can refine your search even more, or you can broaden your search as you like. So, and we also included a forum and webinar page. We didn't, admittedly, we didn't really get a lot of time to get into these more, but we gave a brief layout of what that would look like. And the webinar, we thought, based off of our research, we would definitely recommend considering a third party, such as Zoom, to take care of any webinar-related material. But just because of time limitations, we weren't able to explore that as much. But I think we just focused on trying to get users from point A to point B in a way that was really intuitive and easy to do.
And it's also responsive. Yes.
Yes, it's responsive.
So it can be taken on a mobile device as well. And with the download function, you can access materials wherever you go.
And that will conclude our presentation.
Any questions?
I actually have a question. Hi again. One of the questions that I have, and it's probably sort of for all of the groups, your group and also all the groups to function, is feedback on the modules, the learning modules themselves, and whether or not you guys have thought about putting in some sort of function within the learning module management system for our office potentially to get feedback on the materials themselves.
We consider that for our prototype. However, another person maybe has that in their presentation, but we can certainly put that in. As this is an evolving prototype, we can put in features as we get feedback from users, and we can also put in feedback on modules at this time, if you wish. In the future, you can add a feedback form, or you can add a discussion forum per courses. Right now, we saw a trend with more public learning management systems, where we had discussion per course rather than in general. So that might be what you're looking at if you want per course feedback.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, I didn't want to get in Ati's way. No, I'm too much. I'm also thinking you're right and far out. Okay.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sang, and I'm here, joined up here by Yana, and we'll be going over the online learning management system for you guys. So, so I'll just quickly go over the basic agenda as what we'll be going over in this presentation. So first I'll be covering the project scope, objectives, and the features that we have included in our prototype for you. And after that, Yelena will be covering our research analysis process and how we the way we develop our prototype through the multiple different iterations of this the prototypes basically. And after that, we'll be like showcasing our design, and after that, we'll be like presenting with you some like recommendations and like the way going forward. So briefly, so like this project was to build a online learning management system, LMS, short for LMS, to provide some like training assistance for his staff. And this is also to like offer services to you for the ground in all member countries around the world. So like we wanted to like keep in mind like to make the system as easy as possible so that like everybody around the globe can use it without any further explanations basically. And so some features that we have included in our prototype are ability to build lessons and trainings, and like they could be organized by each topic, and then they are also based on a learning track by different users, and also the dashboard and homepage, and some recommendations that can show some new and relevant trainings and the course materials that could be posted. And also the resources and ability to download each resources onto like the different platform and the global search function so that user can like find what they need to look up. They can put in their like topic or course title or whatnot. And then lastly, the ability to host a virtual like classroom or webinar, and then some Q&A functions through a community and forum basis. And
for research, for our research, we compare 7 different learning platforms. This is some of the World Bank Online Campus, Learning Canvas. We also do research for 2 different sites for webinars, Zoom and Webinar Jam. This is our spreadsheet, how we do compare and what we are looking for. We look for courses and trainings, how they're organized, with the webinar options. Does they have options for a community page, questions and answers, any type of forums, and for all other resources. After this, we focus on simplicity and easy information out, and we start constructing our site map. This site map have all pages we built, and these are the some pages we didn't include it, but they are recommendations. All of these. From there, we build a easy user flow just to see how the user interacts with the machine to log in to whole course page to the end. This is our low fidelity paper sketches. They're based on our previous research. And this is the final version of our sketches. They've done a lot of different stages. We had a lot of recommendations, a lot of feedback. We do a lot of changes. And from these changes, we make our prototype in action.
All right, so I will start by presenting to you some prototypes here. So I'll start from login page. So as a designer, I was very tempted to like go to, like take some creative approaches, but again, like since like this system has to serve pretty much everybody, all the staff around the globe, so I like reverted my course a little bit to basics. So like you will see a lot of similarities between my our design and like other teams' design. So yeah. So here's the login, and then like you can like at the bottom you can include the office information, like address, phone number, and also I have a space reserved on the right hand side to put department logos at the bottom. And then so you can log in, and this is a homepage. And then from here you can also view the courses that you're taking right now, and recommended courses, and some new courses. And then you can kind of like slide left and right to see like browse the courses, and on the right hand side is a upcoming events. So like basically you can list like any upcoming events, whether it's live training, webinar, or meetups, so that people can like see what's coming up, and also add the small the calendar icon so that the users can save those onto their mobile phone, so that they can get access to their calendar. And then question. And here is a course page. So I just put a YouTube page image as a placeholder, but this could also be text-based and video-based. And for video-based, we recommend using a YouTube or something like that's more third-party, because like they support closing captions. So like that's really good for the accessibility with someone who's having an issue like hearing impairments, for example. And then on the right-hand side is a list of the lessons that people can follow, like their progress. And then also we have a small icon on the right-hand side if the lesson has any documents. And by clicking those icons, people can download the resources onto their desktops and mobile phone. And at the bottom, they can view the course overview, description of each course, and also the instructor information, followed by the list of the overall courses, resources that's associated with this particular course. Then I can go to, so this is a menu at the top, and as you can see, sorry, might be too small for you. You can view the courses by different topics, so a topic area. So this is one example about negotiation. So this page will show everything that's related to the issue of negotiation. So the first line would be the courses that you're taking right now that you're enrolled, and the next would be the top courses, and then trainings and webinars that's associated with each different topic. And after that would be people at the top of the taskbar, people can type in their search keywords to access the global search page. And then again, we try to go conventional here with the filter menu on the left-hand side and the search result on the right-hand side. So by playing around with the filters on the left-hand side, the users can narrow down the search results, and also they can change the sort menu options here as well. Then it was kind of obvious, but also people can change the different languages that each courses support at the top. After that,
and for a webinar page, this is a simple webinar page. We have that's access to live presentation or the recorded one. They go to documents received. They can search for dates, join here. This is the webinar registration page. Contains all the information about the speaker, title, time, date, language. They can register here, and it's provided information. The details will be forwarded to the webinar organizer, who may communicate with you regarding these for their services. As we mentioned before, we do research for webinar options. We found Zoom and webinar Jam are the best options as a third part. From the webinar, we have options for a community page. This is our community page. This is the different offices. They contains all information about the office, short description, explanation what they can find in that office, and this is submit form for confidential report or any other messages. This is a general forum. For forum, it's not confidential, it's just question and answers. This is the question and answers. You can type your question or answer here. For submit form, this is particular. They can choose the office, issue, they can put name or no name, it can be anonymous, or they can check here for feedback. they can submit these, obviously they decide not just cancel. And this is the change.
And one thing that I meant to mention here actually before was, so this is a separate page for the platform administrator to actually build the training or different courses. So you will see on the left hand side is a menu bar, and like at the middle is the like where they put like the course title and the course information, and on the right hand side the administrator will be able to like see which multimedia or resource have been included and attached to this new post basically. And this will be accessible if you log into the system with your administrator ID. That concludes our presentation, and back to the presentation.
Feedback and recommendations. For feedback, we do usability testing for this prototype. We get very good feedback. It's very simple, very clear lines, easy to use. Only they didn't like colors. They said they wanted to see more color in this. For recommendations, we do. We have like recommendation for a. I'm sorry. We have some recommendations for platform functionalities. We show you some examples for events and calendar, which we didn't include here. That's our recommendations, definitely. Technical support option, dashboard for administrator, and also user account profile page. Recommendation for accessibility, we test our prototype with just for vision. We use the contrast checker. Pretty much it passed very well. For visibility and hearing standards, we recommend other option to display large font size and make sure the layout does not take zoom in. Consider offering a different version with more contrast between elements. Try to avoid using color combination. They're easy confused by the user with color blindness. And for hearing, it's also simple, which we mentioned before, to provide captions for both the speech and sound effects in the video, provide subtitles plus captions for dialogues, and for web-based multimedia to incorporate sign language in different picture and video. And that's it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Nicole, and I work with Karen, and we together decided to take an approach to the global path to learning and made a product roadmap for our learning management system. The scope that we worked with, we were tasked with creating, I think, somewhat of a flexible product, not knowing fully who this might be used for down the line. We took the approach of thinking about it from the user perspective of someone in the Ombuds office who might be out in the field working to deploy and work on issues. Yes, so we wanted to focus on what users would need in the system, and we focus on 3 main needs, which would be to find resources quickly,
learn and review concepts, and interact and collaborate with colleagues. So our solution includes a learning platform that recommends relevant content and trainings and can be deployed easily. It has access to multiple different types of resources, including PDFs, video resources. It also includes a virtual meeting space where you can host and attend live meetings and webinars in order to facilitate collaboration. We also have content and discourse and collaboration enabled on content with messaging and commenting. For our research and our iteration process, we did competitive analysis on 7 other learning management systems, including Moodle and Khan Academy. We did 5 formal usability tests and multiple new designs based on our findings. We did iterations on the information architecture, we simplified the design, and we made these high demand tasks easier to access. Right, so we will go ahead and jump into our demo. And real quick before we jump into everything that's on this page, I'm going to just direct your attention to 2 things. One is the global top navigation in your top right. This is where we put the more conventional items, and that was actually based on user feedback. We had kind of played with a couple of different layouts with that, but users typically look for their profile, alerts, and global search up there. So we wanted to make sure these things were accessible, and we also wanted to elevate the status of choosing your country and location so that you could go into settings to optimize your language and make that more native to the app. On the side here, we focused on really the main 4 things that we thought users want to do in the system, and that is finding and enrolling in a course, managing the courses that they're in, managing resources that they find that might be in a course, it might not, but it's something they use in their day-to-day jobs, and then meeting on demand or in a scheduled webinar or virtual classroom with their colleagues. So I'm going to walk you through just some of the course directory here. This is something that we also took a lot of user feedback in because we wanted to make sure the information architecture stayed 3 levels or less so that people weren't clicking through too much. So we took a high-level approach to categorizing all of the content by thematic areas so that people could know what they were looking for off the bat. And then each thematic area has sort of an overview of how many courses are in that theme. We used a lot of tagging on a lot of our content so that people could easily find things that were related, and then all of the courses that might be in that given theme. When a user clicks on a course, they're then taken into that specific course so they can see how long that's going to take, how many lessons are in it, if it's online, how many hours it's going to take them approximately, and what languages that course is in. We also wanted to add a recommendation feature so that using the tagging, users can find other courses that they might want to enroll or be interested in. So users can easily add a course, and then they can then go into the My Courses area, which is also available here on the side. They can see everything that they have going at the moment, including the course that they just added, as well as all the other courses that are in progress. They can easily resume or start the course. They can also look to see what they've already completed and these courses. So if you go ahead and resume a course, you get an idea of the content. And this kind of displays what we want people to be able to see and interact with the content. So each content block will be broken down into a video or a reading. They will be categorized by tag, and then there's going to be 3 discrete quick options that they can use. And I'm going to walk you through what some of those options mean in the next section. But each content area does have a discussion option so that people can ask questions and collaborate on that specific content. Now, if you see to the right, adding to reading lists, saving to my resources, and downloading, those are all actions that we wanted to make sure to streamline so that people could be able to find those things later. So we added something called My Resources, which gives them all of those things that they just want. So for a reading list, we thought people might find content or articles that they want to save and look at later that they may or may not be a part of the content or the course that they're taking. So we wanted to make that easily accessible to them.
And then we also wanted to make it easy for them to save articles. So if they liked something and they wanted to download it, they could do that. It would then go into their saved files, and they can also organize that by folder if they're working on a specific case, a specific office, or just want to organize that by topic. We also have some basic website information so they can kind of track some basic things about what they're working on. And then going into the content, again, we have all the same actions and discussions, whether it's an article or anything else. It's easy to save something to your reading list. And it's also easy to save something to your folder. And again, to download a file. So next, Karen is going to walk us through live meeting.
Yes, so here we have your ability to sign up, register for upcoming meetings, and also go into live meetings. And there's also a place where you can view past recordings. So you join here. And there you go, you have your live meeting screen. And then also, there's a global search function. And if you go here, we also have a search, advanced search function that allows you to sort by different parameters and do a global search. Thank you so much. That's just us wrapping up. Do you have any questions?
What platform do you use to make that?
We also use Axure. I think
Thank you for that. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. That was great.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. I'm Melanie and this is Kara, and we did the learning management system, Rocket Man. Our agenda today will first discuss our research and how we developed our LMS prototype, do a demo of the prototype, and then talk about our next steps for the process. So some research that we did some card sorting to see where the topics fit, the different topics that we pulled, the different issues that we pulled from the website to kind of get an idea of information architecture. We did comparative analysis and multiple rounds of usability testing. So these are some of the websites that we looked at for our comparative analysis, and just saw some common features throughout them. Some things that we knew we wanted to incorporate were clear use flows and information architecture cards so that it would be easy to scale the website. A side navigation bar as well as a top navigation bar, easy to understand icons, and an intuitive messaging feature. So for our usability testing, some feedback we got as well as some iterations. The sidebar navigation initially expanded and then contracted, and we got some testers who said that wasn't necessary. We should just leave it fixed. Users suggested we allow buttons, that we add buttons to allow users to go back one step that we hadn't really thought of, so we added those so they could go up just one level instead of having to go back to the dashboard. And we received multiple size and spacing suggestions. So this is our basic sitemap. You start at the dashboard, and then you can go into Learn, Webinars, Virtual Classroom, Forums, and Chat, as well as a level below for most of it.
So I'll start showing the prototype by going through different use cases. So this is Lisa. She's a newly hired facilitator at the UN field office, and she just signed up for a webinar on leadership and management scheduled for 4 p.m. today. So I'll show you what that looks like in the prototype. So here's the dashboard, and you'll see over here that you can find the webinar on the right-hand side, but you can also go through the webinars on the menu page. So here are the webinars. Let's go back and enter on the main page. So this is what the webinar would look like. There's a webinar screen, speaker names and information, and a chat feature to the side. And another use case could be, this is James. He had a virtual classroom appointment with his colleague to address a workplace concern they have. So he could go to the virtual classroom page and then go to his appointment. And there are different video options, and if you go to the chat, and here is where a presentation can be displayed or a global whiteboard. And this is another use case. Jenny needs to access her lesson, and she wants to download lesson materials from one topic in particular. So we'll go to the Learn page. And we'll show you an example of what a lesson would look like. Here's a lesson title and video area, lesson outline, and then here are the downloadable lesson materials that you can download and the course content. And then the final use case, say I'm going to get an email notification and see that someone has commented on his forum post. So he goes to his notifications. Let's go to the forums. And so you could view forums by topic, recent, or following. We'll just go into one to show what it looks like. This would be the forum. You could search within the forum. You could post a reply. You could follow it. And that would show up in your following tab. And then there's also a messaging feature where you can message others inside the app. And I'll show the mobile version. This would be the dashboard page. We just kept everything that we thought would be necessary for the mobile version. And I'll show you just one more page as an example. This would be the webinar page on a mobile phone. The chat feature is down here.
So we have some recommendations that could be taken in this next step to follow our prototype specifications to continue building out what we weren't able to get to due to the time constraints, such as further build out the search function and profile page, as well as the settings page, which would include where you could choose your language. And we would also recommend adding content, like the real content to the platform for testing with the intended users. And we did a high-level roadmap, and we broke the next steps into 4 phases for like the more immediate future and further into the future. So phase 1 includes multiple rounds of usability testing and creating a higher fidelity prototype. Phase 2 includes interviewing like people who would be administering this be the admins for this platform and design the admin pages and then incorporate the feedback. And then phase 3 would include creating a minimum viable product and releasing that for beta testing with a small group of employees. And then phase 4 would include incorporating feedback from the beta test and build out the new product, developers build out the new product and release that product on a wider scale. So that's our presentation. So let us know if you have any questions.
I just have one question. So your 4 phases, what's your sense of how long that's supposed to take to get to the end for the phase 4?
Well, it really depends on resources and how soon you could get developers to us. I guess, I mean, I would say a couple of months for each phase minimum. It depends how in depth you go into it, how many rounds of feasibility testing you're able to do, how widely you want to test it with your employees. So I think it could be quite a range, but probably a minimum of 6 months.
Okay. Okay, good. Thanks for that. Excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, can you see me from here? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, we cannot see you.
Yes, see. Okay. Guess I should. Okay. All right. So we'll try to keep the energy up since it's later with the last people. But my name is Matt. These are my colleagues Sneha and Serena, and we also did the learning management system, RocketMan. So just a very brief agenda, similar to a lot of other groups. We're going to start by talking a little bit about our comparative or competitive analysis, how that led us into our sitemap and information architecture. We're going to demo our desktop prototype on Axure along with our mobile prototype, and then we're going to talk about some recommendations and then have Q&A as always. Okay, so we call it a comparative analysis also because we knew that these companies were in direct competition with what we were doing and got some clarity on that. And mostly we just wanted to see what features they had and kind of how they fit them together, how their navigation was. It wasn't so much design as much as for the information architecture piece. So we looked at more than just these 5, and some we were familiar with, and others we had to do a little bit more research on, like the World Bank, that's a particularly relevant one. And then we moved on to our sitemaps.
So here's a sitemap of our current prototype, which shows 3 levels, starting with the main page, which is the dashboard, and we focused in on the next level with webinar, meeting room, training, and forum. And when the user clicks into one of those pages, they would find more detailed resources and learning content. So I will now walk you through our desktop learning platform. So here's the screen that a user would come to after logging in, which is the dashboard. On the left-hand side, you can see the global navigation, which connects you to all the pages within the platform, which are dashboard, training, webinar, meeting, forum, help, and the option to log out. At the top, there will always be a page title where you can see what page you're on, as well as the option to change the language, direct message a user, view any notifications you have, and change the settings. So on the actual dashboard screen, you have My Training, which shows you your in progress training as well as completed. So in a card view, each card shows one training module with the title, the progress bar, and a number of videos and lessons included. And if you wanted to resume the training, you can simply hit resume. And you can see that you finished the first 2 lessons. And if you want to continue on where you left off, you would find more information about that and hit start. There's also an option to download the training if you want to access it offline. And as well as keeping track of completed trainings, you can click here and review the whole training if you
At the bottom of the screen, we created an assist feature, which without interacting, you can just see new items on the side here, which are different training modules, webinars, and if you scroll, you can see forum posts. Like if you do want to specify a certain issue that you might be having, for example, communication, you could click on communication, and it would show you recommended items based on your issue, consisting of the same training modules, webinar, and forum posts. So Serena will now walk you through the training.
All right, so this is our training listing page. Same card format. You can sort it by topic, newest, oldest, and rating. And then you can search for a specific module or training course. It also shows here how many videos and lessons are in there. Let's get started. And this is what it would look like if you haven't started at all. And the option to download the course material. And the progress bar obviously shows empty. And for the live webinars, also sort by topic, newest, oldest, and rating with the search bar. And you can see upcoming webinars as well as past webinars. The date change in there. And then it's also organized by topic. So team, HR, whatever your topics would be. And then this is what it would look like, and you have the option to converse with others during the live webinar. And then Matt will take you through the rest.
Okay, thanks, Serena. So originally, we did a few iterations of our global map where we had a virtual section that both the webinar and we called it virtual classroom originally, like some of the other groups. But we decided that that was too much navigation, and so we separated them, and we realized that the virtual classroom could be used for more than just educational purposes. You could just have a meeting where multiple people can show up and video chat or type if they need to, and I'll show you a little bit how that works. But just this is the first screen you would get, and you can scroll to another date in your calendar to see, what rooms are open. We have 6 so far, and who has reserved it for what time. So you would just hit these buttons if you wanted to reserve. But here's what an actual meeting room would look like, where you, as a user, would be over here in the upper left-hand corner on your video. And other participants in the meeting would be over here, and you would also have a whiteboard feature where you could illustrate things or teach lessons that way, as well as a chat function to either transcribe for, if there was a language barrier, or just to chat in that way rather than using a microphone feature if you wanted to. And then you can also quickly leave the meeting and go back to the initial screen. And so the next thing would be the forum, which is a little lower technology interaction, but it's very similar to what other groups have, where we can sort by the highest rated, most popular conversations, and newest, oldest. We can do a search for particular keywords or topics. This would be how to create a new post. And if we wanted to reply, let's say to the first post, we would click that, and we would answer. So it would be more the same kind of Q&A forum, not just random conversations. And so you could submit your answer to this post and then see all the other replies, and like the reply or reply to the reply there. And so let's we head back to the dashboard for a second, please. Those would be the labels for the different categories that you would use. Okay, so just to show you, just to remind everybody how all of the pages connect together. So again, your items, either new or recommended, would correspond to either training, webinar, or forum. And so that's why that's the connection there. And if you were just like, okay, get me out. Well, before I say log out, with the help menu, we didn't build it out, but we were thinking it could include just how to use the site, more general resources, but also areas where we could recommend or we could allow users to give feedback for particular courses or for the site as a whole. And then when we're done, go to log out, and that would just take you back to Google or wherever you were browsing from originally.
We'll now share a quick video walkthrough of the mobile platform, which includes the same features as the desktop, but in a smaller view. So here's the dashboard screen where the users would first come to see their training that are in progress and completed.
And I can also see new items at the bottom and scroll through those based on training, webinar, and forum posts. And at the top, the icons that were previously at the top of the bar are now consolidated into this ellipsis icon, where you can change the language, see messages and notifications, and also change the settings. And going into the global navigation, which is now on the side, you can go to training. And you can also, again, sort by the same categories, topic, news, oldest, rating, and scroll through the different modules that are available. And you can also search for anything specific that you're looking for. You can go into webinar, which is the same layout with the sort by at the top, and you can scroll down through webinars based on the topic, and you can also look at past webinars and you'll see data change. And for meeting rooms, a similar view where you can change the date at the top through scrolling and scroll down to see all the meeting rooms that are there. And finally, the forum page, where you can sort again. This one is based on rating, so it's ordered in number of likes, and also has a tag for the topic that's related to. And you can log out whenever you're done. And Serena will now talk about our future recommendations.
Okay. So on the right is our roadmap, which is in the deliverables folder, so you can see all the recommendations. For next steps, we recommend changing the workplace issues and the assist feature on the dashboard to issues that occur in your organization. We just researched the most common. For topics, we recommend sorting based on topics your organization will be using for training, webinars, and forums. And then building out the functionalities for the direct messaging, notifications, settings, search bar, and homepage. And then later on, we recommend just connecting the remaining pages after you upload and organize your content. Right now, as you saw, we only have certain pages connected. And then consider some kind of like score or leaderboard that instructors and other users can see showing training that users have completed. And then conducting accessibility audit on like photo contrast and having video transcripts for the hard of hearing and visually impaired. And then having a chatbot connection either in like the global map or under help that will connect you to the chatbot. And then consider privacy concerns, so including the option for the user to give anonymous if they want to be. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Any questions for them?
I saw a lot of videos on some of the places that we go in have very little bandwidth in terms of, you know, being able to download videos. I'm just curious about that. Is that something that this I've never heard of this before. Accessure, that's the software that you're using to build the learning LMS system. Whether that having so many videos is going to get inhibited when people are in places where they don't have that much bandwidth. Have you thought of that? Is that something? Are there any alternatives to just that? Just your thoughts.
Good question. Consider that, but that could definitely go under recommendations. Having like maybe the option to like download the video before you're in an area where you don't have service, that could definitely go into it.
Okay.
Honestly, we didn't do a lot of thinking about the particular content because we really didn't have a lot of information on that. So we just wanted to create a container that was customizable enough. And Axure, as far as I know, is more just designer friendly and not necessarily, I don't know about the whole back end and part of it. So I'll just have, you know, not knowing everything about that.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you. Wonderful. Appreciate it.
Yes. Thanks a lot.
All right. How about that? Project 3 concluded. Vic, we have no more. All our teams have presented. We have no more teams for you. Wanted to see if you wanted the opportunity to say anything to the class about what you saw today.
Oh, well, just a big thank you to all of you. You did so much hard work. We're all applauding in here. Thank you all.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It was not an easy lift to take it on with such little notice, and lots of complexity with the documents we gave you and the functions that we had. So yeah, thank you for putting your heads together and creating a lot of nice options for us. So we'll be able to take it from here a little bit and kick the tires and circle back at some point. If you all have any wireframes or PowerPoints, things like that, if you're able to collect them and give them to us, that would be wonderful. Any final reports and things.
We will absolutely do that, Vic. Zach and I will follow up with you via email with all of that wonderful stuff that you guys have seen here today.
Okay. Thank you all. Thank you, Javi and Jack. It's really a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much, and we'll be in contact.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.
You gave us so much to think about.